Well, hey there, this is Cindy, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really glad you're here, and I can't wait for you to hear today's episode. We've got a fabulous guest story. But before we dive in, just wanted to share a couple of ways that we can work together if you happen to be looking to uplevel your negotiation skills. I've got everything from online to my signature one-on-one mastermind to help you better leverage your innate power to get more of what you want and deserve in life. So if that sounds interesting, check us out at artoffemininenegotiation.com. And now on to today's program. I am really happy to introduce you to Janet Tonkins today, and you're in for quite a treat. Welcome, Janet.
Welcome. I'm so very happy to be here this morning.
And for those of you who don't know Janet, the reason I'm so excited, her resume is this long and she's doing such incredible work in the world as well. Janet's a real estate investor and developer, and she's affectionately known in Baltimore, Maryland as the Baltimore Real Estate Diva. And that's because she buys houses like other women buy clothing or shoes, which I just loved. But she's successfully bought, sold, rehabbed, managed over $700 million in single-family houses and multi-unit apartment buildings in Paterson, New Jersey, Baltimore, Maryland, Atlanta, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida. And you're going to hear as well about some of the fabulous work she does to give back to her community. So why don't we kickstart, Janet? Tell us a little bit, how did you come to do this line of work?
Okay. And let me tell you, first of all, it was quite by accident. But before we even get into that, Cindy, first of all, women to know that there's nothing special about me, okay? I want you to know that, first of all, I'm your sister, I'm your mother, I'm your auntie, I'm your niece, I'm your grandmother, I am your sister-in-law. I am you, okay? We come from humble beginnings, from Christopher Columbus Projects of Paterson, New Jersey, where violence and drug abuse was the norm, okay? And Paterson is a town where there is low aim and no aim. Even through high school, there were people that told me, okay, for example, I wanted to be a physical therapist, but my guidance counselor said, no, that wasn't something that I should pursue.
Wow.
So even in Paterson today, for African Americans, stealing is low. My husband and I could not have done what we're doing while we were there. We actually had to move out, go back to our hometown to actually give back. I can remember even the politicians. Back in 80, my husband purchased a Corvette. And so what one of the politicians said was, what is Owen doing on that? Because we lived in a corner property. He said, what is he doing? Selling drugs? So even today, that's the only thing that they can see successful people do. But we were all about changing those myths and changing those things. So quite by accident, we bought our first property in 1987. So I want you to listen to him. And the way that we started this is we were looking for our own home to buy. And I didn't want a multifamily unit. I actually wanted a single family. Our realtor negotiated with us with this attorney. So the attorney was doing this as a private sale. So he said to us, we interviewed, we went through the house, and I absolutely loved the house. It was gorgeous. And he said to me, my wife's nephew really wants the property, but they can't qualify for the mortgage. Yeah. So he said, if you really want it, then what we're going to do, I'm going to contact you next week. So next week comes, I hear nothing from him.
Yeah.
The second week goes by, I hear nothing from him. And then finally I call the realtor and she says, Janet, I'm sorry to tell you, he sold it to his nephew.
Oh.
I'm in tears.
Yeah.
So she calls me a week later and she says, to compensate for that, he has a client that has a 3-family multi-unit on the corner of Broadway and 33rd Street. And he wants to know if you're interested in that property for $90,000. I said, okay, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
My husband and I took a look at it. There were 7 rooms on the first floor with 3 bedrooms. There were 7 rooms on the second floor with 3 bedrooms, which we eventually took. And then there were 4 bedrooms with 2 bedrooms on the third floor and 5 finished rooms with a kitchen in the basement, which we also took. So I loved it because the rooms were huge, and we had a garage as well, which is one of the criteria because we were coming from an apartment where we couldn't find parking spaces. So we wind up buying that one particular property. We had saved 20% down. And Paterson is an urban town, much like other urban cities. So he connected us with a program where we only had to put 4% down, and they paid all of our closing costs.
Yeah.
So this one particular property, $90,000 with a 9% interest in 1986. Yeah. We refinanced that same property over 5 times, taking cash out each additional time.
Yeah.
moved to Baltimore in 2001, sold the property in 2005, giving the new owner
Yeah.
$15,000 in concession fees, paying for $3,000 towards a new furnace, and still made over a $200,000 profit. So where else can you go without earning a college degree or any other thing you started? So with that one property, because remember I told you we saved 20% and we did not use it all.
Yeah.
That very same year, we purchased 3 additional multi-units.
Amazing.
Beginning of our career.
I love that. And talk about leveraging that same property over and over. So for our listeners, I hope you're paying attention to that out there. You can being able to take one brave, bold step forward and be able to leverage it. Now, Janet, I'm sure you've had to deal with some pretty big egos in the real estate development and investment world. So what tips would you have for our listeners about how to manage those kind of egos in a negotiation?
Okay. And then Cindy, for me, and I've just read your book, and it absolutely brought home everything for me, and especially your R fit.
Thank you.
Have to be assertive. Of course, as a female in this, and even sometimes, even with my husband, I had to go through the assertiveness. You have to bring that empathy towards you. And for example, when I moved to Baltimore, first of all, we didn't even want single families in Baltimore, but as a result of the 2008, 2009 debacle, I mean, we had cash sitting there. And so we were able to get properties like 50, anywhere from 50% on the dollar. I mean, we paid anywhere from $13,000 for single family properties on up to $100,000 back in those days. But I joined the Baltimore Real Estate Investment Association, which is male dominated. And I've been putting granite countertops in my properties for the last 10, 15 years. And so the guys are saying to me, well, I don't know why you want to put granite countertops in the properties. My thing was, first of all, I'm not going to give you anything that I can't live in myself. And I deal with a lot of subsidized programs, Section 8 vouchers, project-based vouchers, and so forth. But just because these folks are on subsidized programs doesn't mean that they want to live anywhere. And so it was that for me to change, and I have changed the game in that aspect.
I love that.
That was one of the things that they did. And guess what, Sydney? About 5 years later, they would come to me and say, well, Janet, where are you getting your granite tile?
Good for you.
And at that point, I was only paying $19 a square foot. By putting laminate and formica, and I did experience that myself. You put a hot pot on that, you're burning those things up. That also added not to the appraised value of your property, and then its longevity. It lasts longer than your formica. And my average granite tops, I spend a total of anywhere from $700 to $1,200. Over a 10, 15-year period, it's worth it for you to do that than to do the formica.
And I want to put a pin in that for our listeners out there as well, because even and listening to the layers of what Janet's saying too, because that's thinking long term when you're negotiating. So often we just look at that short term gain and we damage long term relationships. We damage long term value. So I love that. Now, you talked about being in a male dominated industry. I'd love what differences, if any, do you see, Janet, in real estate negotiations based on gender?
Okay, well, and that's something that I want to run a women's organization for the Baltimore Real Estate Investment Association. And some of us have a hard time in dealing with, number one, contractors, because the contractors themselves look at us totally different from males in terms of they automatically feel that we don't know what we're talking about. We don't have the experience to actually get in there. But for what I teach and what I've learned, before I even negotiate with them, I learned their language. I learned what they're looking for. I learned the square footage of the houses, the square footage of the rehab, what a rehab cost is, so that I'm able to negotiate with them. And I teach these things to the other women. And then the other thing is sometimes we are more detailed as women in terms of going to the things that we want in the various properties. And then so we bring those things to us. And then we're able to help. I've been able to help other contractors look at it from a female point of view, because most of my rentees and mentees are females. We got to look at the bathrooms. We got to look at the kitchens and the things like that as to what goes in there. and what's going to add long-term value to the appraised value and things like that.
Yeah.
I've been able to bring that with him. And then I've been able to, where things get out of hand with some of the females, I've been able to set those expectations with contractors whereas what things should actually cost. Because some of us want to go in and we want to be cheap on certain things.
Yeah.
Remember, I have to remind everybody, you pay for what you get.
Yeah.
In all aspects of life.
Yeah. Well, I love it. There's a few layers there. There's such great answers. The language, oh my gosh, so important about learning and negotiations to speak the language, speak into the ears you're talking to, right? And I learned that early, even as a lawyer practicing, young 20-something coming out, and I did a lot of work with the Teamsters, and, you got to be speaking their language. If you don't know the difference between a tandem load and, whatever, they're going to be like, how's she going to do our work? And I grew up in a low rental apartment, as we were talking about earlier, in Scarborough. And, then all of a sudden I start law school and all these she events I'd never been to. I didn't speak that language. So it was about learning to speak one with my trade union clients. I felt I could be myself. And then there was this sort of different persona, but also really important to recognize the gender issue, as Janet so beautifully pointed out. Most of those renters and, people who are going to be purchasing are feminine. I've read something recently, Janet, that said well over 50% of the purchasing decisions in real estate are women now. And so many, even real estate agents, are still targeting to the male. So great advice. Now, to do what you do, like I often say that our first and most important negotiation is the one with ourselves, negotiating our own mindset. So obviously you were brave and courageous and took some big steps. So what tips do you have for our listeners on how to negotiate their mindset to maybe help them jump into the real estate or investment world?
Okay. And Cindy, I am 67 years old.
You look fabulous.
Thank you. So, and when I read your book, oh my God, the mindset. My mindset had to be changed. You have to remember, I come from humble beginnings.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 50s, in the 60s, in the Jim Crow area, where I was told that I was nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. As a matter of fact, and sometimes we are our own worst enemies, because back in the 50s and the 60s, as African Americans and as Blacks, light skin, dark skin, long hair, and short hair were a big issue. So out of my family, I'm the oldest of 6.
Yeah. Wow.
Up in Jacksonville, Florida. So my sisters had longer length of hair than I did. And they had what's called, and African Americans will know what's called good hair.
Yeah.
Okay. I had no hair, this little short pickaninny hair or whatever. What Grandma did is, Grandma and her mother Lee and Sister Harris, they actually closed the door and prayed over my hair so that my hair could grow. Now, think about what that did for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really, I grew up with actually low self-esteem. It didn't help any. But I guess the one thing, there was always something in me. I was smart, I loved school and was always smart and did extremely well in school. Even at 6 years old, I was tutoring other children on how to read.
Wow.
Okay? It was always something within me, but I still had a mindset of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
With that low self-esteem that I couldn't do it. But the mindset had to change. I understood that in order for me to change. And so, praise God, I had an absolutely wonderful husband, and we've been married 41 years.
Wow. Nice.
It took me 12 years to get my bachelor's degree. He said, Janet, I don't care if you take one course a semester, you continue to do that. So he helped improve that self-esteem and that mindset. And then I read as much as I could. I read Forbes magazine, I read Money magazine, I read Zig Ziglar, I read Jim Rohn, I read Bob Proctor. And so I learned, that whatever you think, you become. And so I practice, of changing my belief system and changing my mindset within my own self, because I had to realize too that not only impacted me, but that it would impact my children as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so absolutely, I had to change that mindset and negotiate within me first in order to change everything else. And then once I began to believe in my own self and believe that I could do, and then commit and be persistent about that, then that's when I began to change as well. I mean, I started as a telephone operator as well at the age of 16 with New Jersey Bell, and then worked my way up to middle management. I was able to retire at the age of 50. I'll tell you a little story. I from a telephone operator to a customer service rep. I mean, one of my strengths is consistency.
Yeah.
It took me to get to a service rep. They said I failed the test 7 times, but I don't believe I failed it.
Yeah.
But I took it. I kept taking it and taking it and taking it until I actually passed the test. And that's one of my very strengths this day is I never give up. You know, if it's something that I want, then I continue. And continue. And then on that note, I'm changing, as I said, and I've been in this business, I said, since 87. And I've been pretty successful at it. But I didn't see myself as successful. I would get to a certain point and then self-sabotage.
Yes.
Because I should have been doing some of these things, podcasts, writing a book years ago. I have a book coming out the end of September with Jack Canfield.
I was just going to ask you about that, the turning point. So, yeah.
I said I was going to do this 3, 4, 5 years. So I get to a certain point and I look back, and it was also, I think, a fear of success as well. So all those things that you mentioned in your book, I have actually gone through. I have actually gone through just about everyone, and I'm not finished with the book as of yet.
And I want to hear about that book in just a minute, because I'm excited about that. But I really want to circle back and make sure for our listeners, because you said some really powerful stuff there, Jen. I mean, that was a powerful story. And thank you so much for sharing. But this idea, I mean, for me, what really resonated was this growth mindset, right? Being able to approach life, not with a fixed mindset, not with a fear of failure. I mean, for our listeners, like if you think with Janet, that persistence 7 times to be told you failed and know that's probably not even accurate, but still get up, dust yourself off, and go back again. So I think so many of us self-sabotage and hold back because we're afraid of failure. So embrace the failures as opportunities to learn and grow. I advocate having fail-abrations where you're like, what did I fail spectacularly at? And what can I do?
That word, celebrations. And I always tell my people to increase your failures, you'll increase your success.
So good. So good. And also know what Janet did in terms of environment. If you don't happen to be an environment where you've got people that are uplifting you and inspiring you, which is so important to have an environment. I love how creative you got, Janet. You got books, Zig Ziglar. Let me look at personal development out there. You created your own environment. So such great tips. And just give us a little teaser about the turning point there that you're doing in collaboration with Jack Canfield.
Oh, the turning point. What he's done, he's gotten about 12 folks from all over the world, not just in the United States. So what we're doing is we're telling our story. We're telling our story from where we began. So I'm pretty much a rags to riches story. Yeah. And so I tell you a little bit about where I've come from, some of it, because I'm telling a lot of folks, even in my environment and in whom I'm associated with, don't know my detailed story. Yeah. So I'm actually getting a little bit in there. For example, as I told you, I come from the Christopher Columbus projects. Oftentimes, we lived on the 15th floor. So we had to drag, many times the elevators were broken. So we had to drag not only groceries, but the laundry up 15 flights of dark stairs. Many times. When times the elevators were broken, and they were broken quite often. I almost got raped on one of those elevators. Jeez. And then I talk about, remember I told you about the low end, and so many of us, even in today's day and time, we put so much credence in other folks. Okay, I had a boyfriend. I had a scholarship to Rutgers, but I didn't go to Rutgers because he said if I go to college, he would leave me. And so, I put my credence in that. And the other thing is, which I laugh about now, I was supposed to marry him. We had this engagement all in the newspapers and everything. Wow. But I didn't marry him. I wind up paying for my own. I co-signed for my engagement ring, wind up paying for my own engagement. And not know what the heck he did with it.
Wow.
But I look back, my mantra now is to seek God first and everything else will be added unto me. When I look back over my life, I have a testimony because you know why? He didn't marry me, but he married 3 other women. All 3 of them died, including himself of AIDS.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
the Lord had his hand on me every step of the way.
Wow.
Had I married him, I would not be here today.
Wow. That's incredible. My God.
I tell those things in the book. I tell those things in the book as well.
And when's that coming out? So we'll make sure that our listeners can be looking for it.
September 30th.
Okay. All right.
With Jack and some others, September 25th through the 29th in the bookstore.
Fantastic. Now tell us a bit too. I understand. I love that just how invested you are in your communities and trying to serve and give back. I understand you're currently building an apartment complex for grandparents raising their grandchildren. Can you tell us what was the impetus of that project for you? I love it. I think it's gorgeous.
As you know, and so even I have the many tenants too that are grandparents. As you know, now with mental health issues,
yes,
drug abuse issues, and all sorts of issues, grandparents are now being thrust back into childbearing. Otherwise, these kids would have to go back into the system, foster care system, or go through the various states. So we saw that as an issue. And one of the things that you said is to build relationships, building a rapport. That's you are fit. And so we were able to go back to Paterson, and we've been gone 21 years ago. My husband used to be the economic development director for the city of Paterson, but he established relationships and never let them go. So we went back to Paterson when Governor Murphy got into office. And one of the gentlemen that he worked with, who's still director of the parking authority, and in Paterson, the parking authority has all the land, said, okay, we need some African-American developers to actually come in. And we had done some stuff here in Baltimore within the Johns Hopkins area. As a matter of fact, we did 20 row homes. We completely rehabbed them and won a national award. We did partnership with Forest City New East Development out of Ohio. We did 3 medical labs, but Forest City did not want to do the labs. And they're the ones who developed all the stadium around the Nets in Brooklyn. They didn't want to do the lab. They didn't want to do any housing. They just wanted to do the biotech. So they gave the housing to us. So we did 40 brand new homes in conjunction with Ryan Homes, which sold in a day.
Wow.
And so we've changed what's called in Baltimore, it was called the Middle East region. It's now completely changed. And so we were able to go back. We had the mayor from Paterson come down. Yeah. They had never seen African Americans do any of those things. We had to come to Baltimore and say, yes, we can do this, and we have some ideas for you. We'd first heard about this. There's a project in Washington, D.C. And so we said, we can do that. We can take that. In Paterson, it's very, very much needed. So what we did is we were able to negotiate with getting the land for little or nothing. And we were able to partner with the Wind Development Organization. And so what we did with them, we also brought in a grandparents organization, nonprofit with the city of Paterson. They were providing food and clothing too. So we're offering them 2,000 square feet of space, totally free. We are helping them obtain a grants person, and then we're going to be providing them with free resources, free computers, and then helping them bringing counseling in to help those grandparents and to help the children, because there's so many other issues that are there with it. The grandparents, as we know, with food, with clothing, and then sometimes the age gap and so forth. So we're bringing mental health folks in there as well to actually do
that. God, kudos, Janet. That is so important. God, it is such a pet peeve of mine. I've been talking all over the place these days about mental health and how we have to get rid of the stigma, how we have to start improving the services available. And you put your money where your mouth is and take action. I love that. Now, can I ask what role, because obviously you do, it sounds like you're so organized in terms of your preparation and forward thinking. So what do you think are the most important elements of preparation, and what role does that play in negotiating these real estate deals and investments that you are so fabulous at? Preparation
is everything. Okay. And so it's extremely important. And you need to surround yourself with those that can assist you in that preparation as well. So typically what I do is I have a small team. Okay. My husband and my family members are in this as well. So I have my brother, I have my sister, my sister-in-law. And as a matter of fact, what we do is we meet either by phone or together every other week. Every 2 weeks we're meeting. We hold quarterly retreats out of the country.
Wow.
We were in Jamaica last week, and that was our third quarterly retreat. So we prepare for as much as we can for all those things to come. We were in Dubai 5 years ago when we talked about building from the ground up. We saw all the cranes going on around us. And so we said, we're going to be doing this. And then 5 years. So this is a dream for us. And then with preparation, you're able to meet opportunity head on. So when the opportunity avails itself, you can. And then the other thing with preparation is being excellent. I tell people to choose that one thing and then become excellent at it. And then everything else will avail itself.
Yes.
And then the opportunity, because as a result of this one project in Paterson, we've gotten other opportunities. The city of Newark wants us to come in and do those. We've gotten 2 other projects as a result of that one project. So preparation is extremely key.
Oh my gosh. And you just said something that was like, and again, that was a golden gem for all of you listeners or viewers out there. What Janet said, they're preparing even before the opportunities arise. And I think we don't do that. So vision what you want, have those big dreams and goals and vision, prepare for them, believe in them. And then when the opportunity presents itself, which you'll be attracting, you are ready for it. That is gorgeous advice, Janet. I just love that. And what do you think are the key reasons that you've seen that most negotiations fail?
Once again, people don't, as we've just talked about, people don't prepare for it. And if you're not preparing for it, what that says to me is you're not committed to it as well. And then you have to have a passion and a purpose for what you're actually doing. So I think that's why the people don't bring the passion, they don't bring the purpose, they don't bring the commitment, they don't bring the right attitude, they don't bring the relationships. I mean, it's so, as you said, in your fit. Okay, assertiveness is so very important. Rapport building a relationship. That's been one of the hallmarks of our success. I mean, in my church, it's all about relationship, or it ain't about nothing, and that extends to everything. As I say to my children, more so, you can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees. Okay, yeah. But if you don't know how to build communication and build relationships, then you're going to stymie your growth. Then you talk about empathy. It's so very, very, very important to understand and feel other folks' pain and feel where they are. So that empathy, and then being flexible, as you said. If we're not flexible and adaptable, we're going to be left behind. Okay. Yeah. And my prayer, especially for African Americans, each and every day, is, Lord, please don't wipe us off the face of the earth because of so many things that we're going through. And a lot of that is being inflexible. And then looking back on what was done to us years ago, we got to get out of that. We got to go forward with that. And then after the flexibility, we talked about the intuition and the trustworthy. Women, we have to hop on our intuition, because more often than not, we're right on. We're right on target when it actually gets to that as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, such great answers. And as you were speaking, it just struck me too, because we're so polarized in the world today, right? I mean, we're just seeing such polarization. And as we're seeing sort of groups rise up, whether it's the rise of the feminine, whether it's the rise of a recognition of Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of emotion, right? Because of historical injustices and oppression. So I'd love your thoughts on what role emotion plays in negotiation, whether on that big stand or even in like real estate negotiations, for example. What have you seen about the role of emotion?
Okay. Emotion plays an extremely important part, but sometimes for me, I think what we need to do is sometimes we have to park that emotion, and then as opposed to emotion, pop on your strengths. Yeah. And then the real things that matter in those negotiations, especially in real estate. The price point, the location, how much it's going to cost you, doing your actual homework and the physical analysis. Because bottom line in real estate, nothing matters more than the numbers. It's the numbers that are actually out there. What are you going to be able to get for rent? What about the actual neighborhood? Are you going to actually be able to get a great tenant? Or, as I said earlier, I'm not going to put anybody in anything that I can't live in. So you have to think, would you live in this particular locality? And so when you get the hard numbers and the hard facts, then you present those first, then the emotions are come after.
Nice. Such good advice.
The other thing too is what I like to do is to change the mindset, and especially of women, not only in real estate, but financially.
Yes.
Cindy, I have a second book that's coming out. It's going to be called Pocketbooks, Shoes, Houses You Choose. Okay? And the reason being, some of us say that we don't have money, but we actually do. If I look at the sneakers that you're paying $200 and $300 pairs of sneakers that you're putting on these baby shoes.
Yeah.
I look at the nails, the housing, and the nails and the clothing that you're buying. And I was there.
Yeah.
Remember, I told you, I'm your sister.
Yeah.
I've been through all those things. We are being left back. I have statistics here to say home ownership has grown worse. We were better off in the 60s as African Americans. Yeah. Even the Latinas are passing us in terms of home ownership, financially, wealth. And you don't have to want to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
What I want you to understand that you owe it to our ancestors, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your children to be the best that you can be when it comes to financially. So my goal is to help women create financial independence, whether it be through real estate or any other matter. I want to help you create individual wealth.
Yeah.
Or at least create the wealthy mindset. As a matter of fact, I had a girlfriend that was with me in Jamaica last week who said something about, well, I'm poor. I have a poverty mind. I said to her, you know what? I don't ever want to hear that out of your mouth.
Absolutely.
Not even jokingly.
Yeah.
Okay. Because those are some of the things that have held us back, the poverty mindset. So I want to help women create financial independence and live life on your own terms.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to become a millionaire. Okay. I want to bring that forefront. So I'm changing from the Baltimore Real Estate Diva to the cash flow.
I love that. It's so important, right? I mean, that law of attraction, because we tell ourselves stories that hold us back. So if you're telling yourself a story that I'm poor, if you're telling yourself a story that I'm not lucky, I'm never going to get it, then you know what? That's exactly what you're going to get. So now, and I normally like to end, this has been amazing, with asking what's one of the greatest mindset shifts you've ever had in your life? And again, it doesn't have to be about your business. It can be personal. Would it be that finance piece? What would you say is your greatest mindset shift?
The greatest mind shift that for me is that once reading Think and Grow Rich and dealing with Ziegler and Rome, that whatever it is that I want to do, I can do it as long as I believe that I can do it.
Yes.
And even the Bible says that you can do it if you believe, if you trust and believe. Ask, seek, and find. And then for me, as I said, seek God first, his kingdom and his righteousness, and everything else will be added unto you. And I've seen that come through full force in my life. And then that's what I intend to do. And I intend to, and in my mindset, also to serve.
Yeah.
Be a servant. Because if you serve, you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
You absolutely. And for me, it's to serve. And then everything else will come along with it. And it's not about me getting it back, but it's about me giving.
And you model that so beautifully. So thank you for that. And I think that's a gorgeous mindset shift about if you can believe, because our brain tries to give us what it thinks we want. And if we keep telling our brain that we can't do things, our brain is going to look for examples to prove that. But if we allow ourselves to believe, even before we feel it at our core, our brain's going to start looking for examples of how we can achieve. So, well, Jen, I can't thank you enough. There have been some beautiful golden gems in here. So thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
And thank you so much for having me, Cindy. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I wish you much, much, much luck and success as well.
Well, likewise. And where can our listeners go to learn more about you? What are the best social media? And we'll make sure to put those in the show notes.
Right now, Baltimore Real Estate Diva is still there. So, but we're transforming that to cashflowdiva@gmail.com.
Okay.
So the website is going to be increased. And so, I've been out of touch when it comes to social media.
No worries.
Getting on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or so. you'll find me on all those things as well.
Okay, well, I'll get you to flip me that stuff, Janet. We'll make sure to put it in the show notes so everybody can track you down. You're truly inspirational. So I have no doubt that you guys just got loads and loads of value from this episode today. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done that yet. And I always say, give the gift of sharing. Make sure to share this podcast with other people that you think can benefit. And frankly, who cannot benefit? All of life is a negotiation. So learning to up-level your negotiation skills is key. And in this episode, not only did you get great advice and gems about real estate and investment, but life lessons that will really help you live a better life. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so that you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.